Hey everyone, it's January 9th, and that means that if today is your birthday, you share it with serial killer Dorothea Puente, who murdered at least 9 victims in the 1980s, and that is her right up there. Puente was born in 1929 in San Bernardino County, the child of two abusive alcoholics who often left her to fend for herself and find her own food. Her father died when she was 8, and her mother followed when she was 9, at which time she was sent to an orphanage until she was taken in by relatives in Fresno. She later lied about her upbringing when asked, claiming to be one of 18 children from a large family raised in Mexico. Having been to both San Bernardino and Fresno, I totally understand why she'd want to hide being from either. She got married in 1946, but her husband had a heart attack and died just 2 years later. To get by, she began forging checks but was caught and spent 4 months behind bars. In 1952, she was married for a second time, and this marriage lasted 14 miserable years filled with abuse. She was jailed again in 1960 for propositioning a policeman in a brothel, and after her release 90 days later, her husband had her committed to a mental institution where she was diagnosed as a pathological liar. Puente seemed to have turned her life around after her divorce in 1966 when she began running boarding houses and working as a nurse's aide. She got married for a third time that year to Robert Puente, a man 19 years her junior in Mexico City. They split after only 2 years due to infidelity, and as her marriage was falling apart, she opened her own boarding house in Sacramento. She provided services to homeless and destitute denizens in the area, taking in tough cases others wouldn't. In the late 70s, she was briefly married again, but her new husband left after just a week of marriage. She developed a habit of hanging out in bars, trying to meet older men who were receiving government benefits, then getting involved in their lives so she could forge their signatures and steal their money. Puente was caught in 1978 and put on 5 years probation for 34 counts of treasury fraud. In 1981, she began renting a bedroom in her home, which was how she met her many murder victims. Taking in elderly boarders, Puente would collect their mail and steal their Social Security checks. When they complained, they would receive an overdose of codeine administered through a home-cooked meal. The first murder occurred in 1982, and police believed her when she claimed it was a suicide. A few weeks later, the police were called by a resident complaining that she had drugged them, and she ended up serving 3 years in prison for this offense. Upon her release, she resumed her murderous ways, even convincing a carpenter to build a makeshift coffin and help her dump one of her victims along the river. That corpse was found in 1986 but went unidentified, so she was free to continue killing. It wasn't until a social worker inquired about a missing schizophrenic man in 1988 that a real investigation occurred, and at that point police realized she had killed at least 9 victims, burying many of them in her basement and garden. She fled to Los Angeles but was spotted in a bar after a story about her appeared on a newscast, and she was arrested. Puente was convicted of 3 murders in 1993 and was sentenced to life in prison, maintaining her innocence until her dying day, which came in 2011. In 1998, she became pen pals with a man who compiled letters and recipes she sent him and published them in a cookbook titled Cooking with a Serial Killer in 2004. If this is your birthday, I hope you have a great day. Leave me a comment so I can wish you a happy birthday. If you know someone's birthday it is today, send them this video. And to Dorothea Puente, I say, happy birthday, you bastard.